In this video, I want to talk to you about the 5 best passive income investment as a beginner. Do you know what you can't buy with money? Time. The thing is, we're gonna always make more money, but those dollar bills that you make just can't buy your time back. And like what Warren Buffett said, if you aren't able to find a way to make money while you're asleep, you will work until you. With that in mind, I filtered out the 5 best passive income investments to make money while you're asleep. Now, to make this video as practical as possible for you, all of these passive income investments can be turned into cash within 3 to 5 business days. And the amount of work required from you is less than an episode of your favorite show on Netflix per month. On top of all that, I've added a 2-factor rating system to each of these passive income investments so that you can pick one that's best for your circumstances. If this is your first time here, welcome. My name is David, and I'm just a bold Asian man making personal finance videos with an order at the back. Now make sure you always gently smash that like button, and without further ado, let's go! So this is how this video is going to work. Now, because I have picked out passive income investments that's already extremely liquid and require minimal work on your end, I'm gonna judge the quality of these passive income investments based on 2 factors: risk and return. Now, when it comes to risk, 1 is extremely risky and 5 is really safe, like cash or government bonds. And when it comes to returns, 1 is low returns and 5 is high returns. And for each of the passive income investments, I'll talk a little bit about what it is, how it works, and I'll talk through the rationale why it's risky or not risky, or why it's high returns or low returns. Now, the first passive income investment that I want to talk to you about is something that we're all very familiar with, and they are index funds. Now, index funds are essentially a portfolio filled with the world's top companies. And depending on which country's index you buy, the dividend yield for that index is very different. Let me give you an example. The S&P 500, which is essentially the top 500 companies in the US, yields approximately 2.31% as of recording this video. On the other hand, ASX 200, which is the top 200 companies in Australia, yields approximately 4.4% as of recording this video. That's mainly because the top companies in Australia are not tech companies, they are resource companies or banks, and they're usually more mature and less growth oriented, so it's understandable that they have a higher dividend yield. So at a dividend yield of 4.4%, if you invest $1,000 in the beginning of this year, at the end of this year, you will have $1,044, not accounting for share price growth or decline. And can I just remind you that you barely have to do anything to earn that $44? Now, with $1,000 or even less than $1,000, I recommend you to look into exchange traded funds that follow an index that you want. And also really pay attention to low management fees. You want fees to be as low as it possibly can be. So from a risk standpoint, because the index that you're usually investing in are some of the top companies in the world or in that country, they're relatively safe. They are less dangerous compared to small cap stocks or even penny stocks. So I'm gonna give that 3 out of 5. From a return standpoint, we know that if you invest in an index over the long term, we know the return is anywhere between 9 to 10% with dividends reinvested. So I'm gonna give returns a 4 out of 5. So in total, investing in index funds as a passive income investment is a 7 out of 10 investment in my opinion. And I think investing in index funds is just a great way to start investing and also learn to build a habit of investing. And also make sure you watch this video all the way to the end, because I'll be sharing my dividend stock portfolio on how I'm able to make $155 per month by barely doing anything. Okay, the next passive income investment I have for you is fixed income assets. Don't let that name scare you. It essentially just means that you are lending money to someone else and they are obliged to pay you a fixed amount over a set amount of time. A good example of fixed income assets will be certificate of deposits, government bonds, municipal bonds, or even peer-to-peer lending. Now, this video is supposed to be the best passive income investments, not a list of them. So I decided for this segment, I'm not going to talk about certificate of deposits or peer-to-peer lending. But if you'd like me to explain why I don't like it, just ask me in the comments below and I'll just rather write you an extensive reply rather than talk about it in this video. Now, with government and municipal bonds, you are essentially lending to the government and the state respectively. And because it's backed by the government or the state, it just doesn't really get any safer than that. And better yet, with municipal bonds, the fixed income is federal tax free, and if you live in the same state, it will also be city and state tax free. I wish municipal bonds is a thing here in Australia, but unfortunately, the only thing we have here are government bonds. So when it comes to picking individual bonds, whether that is government bonds or municipal bonds, if you have the time to understand economic conditions, central bank interest rates, and also consumer sentiment, then feel free to choose individual bonds for yourself. Because my interest is in stocks and also creating video for you, I personally prefer a portfolio of different duration bonds to diversify my risk and spend my time doing something else. On the topic of portfolio of bonds, if you're in the US, check out IEF. IEF is a portfolio of 7 to 10 years treasury bond fund. and it's currently yielding approximately 1.71% as of recording this video. And also feel free to check out another ETF called MUB, which is a municipal bond fund that's currently yielding 2.31%. Now, if you're in Australia, check out an ETF called IAF. And that is essentially a diversified portfolio of government bonds that's currently yielding approximately 1.97%. Now, similar to investing in index funds, if the portfolio of government bonds is yielding approximately 1.97%, if you invest $1,000 in the beginning of the year, at the end of that year, you will have approximately $1,019 without doing anything. Also, not accounting for bond prices going up or down. From a risk standpoint, other than certificate of deposits or cash, I don't think there's anything safer than government bonds. So that's a 4 out of 5 when it comes to risk. And because of the minimal risk you are taking, the returns are just not going to be as good as stocks. So from a return standpoint, that's going to be a 2 out of 5. So in total, government bonds and municipal bonds as a passive income investment is a 6 out of 10 type investment in my opinion. So I would think of fixed income assets not as a core passive income investment in your portfolio, but more as a defensive asset to defend yourself against really volatile environments. And now we have to talk about everyone's favorite passive income investment under the sun, and that's real estate. As some of you may or may not know, the cost of housing in Australia will set me back 200,000 cups of a soy mocha worth $5.50 each. So I am not really ready for that kind of commitment buying rental properties yet. But that doesn't mean that we can't invest in real estate at all. There are real estate investment trusts just like stocks, and they're short for REITs. And the whole purpose of REITs is to own, operate, and finance income-producing real estate. So for those of you who don't want to fork out $200,000 as a down payment and an $800,000 mortgage, deal with angry tenants and broken toilets, then yeah, I would personally recommend checking out REITs. The thing to pay attention to when it comes to REITs is that different REITs hold different types of real estate in their portfolio. Some REITs hold a lot more shopping centers, some hold a lot more in commercial real estate like office spaces, and some hold a lot more in residential or logistics. So here's what I look for in REITs as a passive income investment. There are two main criteria. The first criteria is a strong balance sheet. Now, whenever you hear people talk about strength in balance sheet and strong balance sheet, what they're really saying is that do they have enough current assets to meet all of their current liabilities? So let me explain. Current assets are essentially cash or anything that you can make transaction with in a very short amount of time. And current liabilities are essentially all the debt you have to pay within the next 12 months. Now, if a REIT has a strong balance sheet, then you would know that they have the capability to survive in the short to medium term. The second criteria is that the REIT needs to own resilient and essential properties. Let me explain. Given what's happening in the world right now, where majority of the population is staying home, I really believe that this has a cultural shift to the value of real estate properties. Now, we have to think long term. The types of real estate, in my opinion, that tick both the resilience box and also essential box are logistic real estate properties and residential properties. If REITs is something that you're interested in and you're in the US, check out a company called Prologis. Prologis. It's currently yielding 2.4% as of recording this video. And if you're in Australia, check out a company called Goodman Group. Now, the interesting thing about both of these stocks is that Amazon is their biggest customer, and both of these REITs have strong balance sheets to weather the storm over the short to medium term. So from a risk standpoint, REITs, especially the REITs that I talked about that are in residential or logistics and have a strong balance sheet, in my opinion, they are a 3 out of 5 when it comes to risk. And return wise, I know they don't sound amazing, but they also have growth potential and also dividend yield. So I'm gonna meet you halfway and say that is a 3 out of 5 when it comes to return. So in total, REITs is a 6 out of 10 type passive income investment. And I think that if real estate is something that you're passionate about, that you want to learn more about, this is a really good way to get started to learn more about real estate if you don't have the money yet to buy a rental property. And also a great way to get some exposure in real estate if that's what you're after. The next passive income investment is actually one that helped me build my investing habit, and these are roundup apps. Now, with roundup apps like Acorns in the US or Raise in Australia, you have an opportunity to pick a portfolio that fits your risk appetite. So you have portfolios that's very conservative, which majority of your money will be invested in either bonds or cash, or you have a highly aggressive portfolio where majority of your money will be invested in equities. From a risk standpoint, it's highly dependent on the portfolio that you choose within the roundup app. But generally speaking, majority of these portfolios are already invested in ETFs, which are extremely diversified, and the companies have done a lot of due diligence on selecting which ETFs with the lowest fees already. So I'm gonna give the risk a 3 out of 5. From a return standpoint, again, that's highly depending on which portfolio that you're choosing within the roundup apps. But to generalize again, I'm just gonna say the returns are 3 out of 5. So in total, Roundup Apps is a 6 out of 10 type passive income investment. And I think it's just a great way to start investing if you don't have the money to do so, but to also build the habit of investing as well. And last and definitely not least, and that's dividend stocks as a passive income investment. Now, this is one of my favorite things in the world right now because I can't afford a rental property. Now remember in the beginning of the video, I mentioned that I'm making $155 per month, barely doing anything. Yeah, dividend stocks. So I want to take the opportunity to show you how and what I've chosen to invest in. By no means, they're not perfect, but so far, here's what my portfolio looks like. Wait, I actually mean $192.11 per month. This is a complete breakdown of my portfolio. And from the outside, it might look very, very strange and there's no apparent strategy to it, but let me explain. The majority of my portfolio is actually invested in listed investment companies where their focus is to build their portfolio and invest in companies that will grow the dividend income year on year. And around 15 to 20% of my portfolio will always be dedicated towards index funds. Now, there's a really, really good reason why I didn't choose to invest in an Australian index fund, because with the listed investment companies I'm invested in, I already have enough exposure into Australian stocks. I just much prefer, if I was going to dedicate 15 to 20% of my portfolio, I wanted to dedicate it towards stocks in a different country, especially growth stocks if possible. Now, there's a few odd stocks in my portfolio that just doesn't seem right. For example, ResMed and AMD, they don't really yield a lot of dividends. However, there are some companies that I will always make an exception for if I want to personally own. I personally really love the management team of AMD and everything that they have done since 2014. If you'd like me to talk more specifically about the stocks or the companies that I own in my portfolio, let me know in the comments below by doing a thumbs up. And if there's enough people who want me to explain my key rationale when it comes to picking individual stocks, I will do a dedicated video just for that. Now, when it comes to picking dividend stocks, it's very, very similar to REITs. You want companies with really strong balance sheets and you want the business that they're in to be resistant, and also it's an essential part of our world. But the thing is, when it comes to investing in Australia, if you just buy individual companies, the transaction cost is actually very, very expensive. Unfortunately, we don't really have a stock trading platform here that allows us to trade for free. All the transaction costs money. And if I was to build a portfolio with individual stocks, it'll be very, very expensive. So this is one of the reasons why I wanted to manage and minimize my costs by investing into listed investment companies with a portfolio that I feel really, really comfortable with. And that's one of the reasons why you see majority of my dividend stock portfolio are actually in listed investment companies. So when it comes to risk of investing in dividend stocks as a passive income investment, in my humble opinion, it's a 3 out of 5. Now, dividend stocks are mostly mature companies who have an established competitive advantage, so their share price don't volatile and don't swing as much. And because of that, the returns are pretty stable. But because of franking credits that's available in Australia, I have to give the returns a 4 out of 5 instead of a 3 out of 5. Even though franking credits may not be available to different countries, I still think dividend stocks are a 4 out of 5 when it comes to returns, as long as you have a diversified portfolio of dividend stocks. So in total, investing in dividend stocks is 7 out of 10 type passive income investment. And this is one of my favorite ways of investing my money right now,
because I just can't afford a rental property. That's probably the only reason.
So thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. I really appreciate you doing that because it helps me gauge whether you enjoy content like this, and it helps me determine what I need to improve on in my next couple of videos. Now, as usual, if you want to support me, make sure you gently destroy that like button so that the YouTube algorithm will push my video out there and share it with more people. And always remember to subscribe to my channel, clicking onto the bell so that every time I release a brand new video, you'll be the first one to know. And until next time, I'm gonna let him say goodbye. See you guys.